Honestly, when I first heard that Darkseid was finally entering James Gunn's DCU through Mister Miracle, I should have been excited. This is Darkseid we're talking about, one of the biggest villains in comic book history, the ruler of Apokolips, the god of tyranny, the physical embodiment of oppression and fear. And now we're finally getting new gods, scot-free, Big Barda, and Darkseid officially introduced into the new DC universe. So why do I feel so weirdly unexcited? I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and honestly, I think I'm slowly starting to lose enthusiasm for James Gunn's DCU overall. Not because it's terrible, but because more and more projects are starting to feel emotionally safe. After Superman, which I thought was just okay, and Supergirl, which honestly felt more like a side project than a major universe event, I've started noticing a pattern with James Gunn's DCU. Everything feels lighter, more colorful, more playful, more fun. And look, I understand why Gunn is doing that. After years of dark and messy DCEU movies, DC probably wanted something more approachable and audience-friendly. But at the same time, I think DC risks losing what made it feel unique in the first place. Because when everything becomes ironic, self-aware, and full of jokes every 5 minutes, eventually the universe starts feeling weightless. That's honestly my biggest fear with Darkseid, because Darkseid should never feel light. He shouldn't feel quirky. He shouldn't feel like another Marvel-style villain trading sarcastic dialogue with the heroes. Darkseid should feel terrifying. And honestly, whether people loved Zack Snyder or hated him, I still think he understood that part perfectly. Even though Snyder barely used Darkseid in the DCEU, every scene with him felt massive. The atmosphere changed whenever he appeared. The way he stood, the way the music hit, the way characters reacted to him. He didn't feel like just another CGI villain. He felt mythological, like an actual god watching civilizations collapse. That's what made Snyder's version memorable despite having limited screen time. There was weight behind him. There was fear.
Meanwhile, when I look at James Gunn's DCU so far, I honestly worry that Darkseid might lose that aura completely. And that's what makes Mister Miracle such an important test for the future of this universe. Because the original Mister Miracle comic by Tom King is not some fun space adventure. It's dark, psychological, depressing. It's a story about trauma, abuse, war, depression, and emotional survival. Scot-Free isn't just escaping from Apokolips physically, he's escaping from years of emotional damage caused by Darkseid's world. That's why Darkseid works so well in that story. He's not just a villain punching people, he represents hopelessness itself. And honestly, I'm worried Gunn's DCU might be too afraid to fully embrace that darkness. That's been my biggest issue lately. Sometimes it feels like DC is trying so hard to avoid being too serious that it accidentally removes the emotional intensity entirely. Everything becomes fast-paced, everything becomes comedic, everything becomes easier to consume. But where's the ambition? Where's the feeling that this universe is building towards something truly epic and emotionally overwhelming? That's what I miss about Snyder's vision sometimes. Not necessarily the execution every time, but the ambition. Even when Snyder failed, at least it felt like he was aiming for something huge, something mythological, something operatic. Meanwhile, some newer DCU projects feel more like content than events. And I really don't want Darkseid to become another victim of that approach. Because if Darkseid enters the DCU only to become another cool villain cameo with generic dialogue and standard action scenes, that would honestly be disappointing, especially for a character this important. Now, to be fair, there's still a lot of potential. The fact that Mister Miracle is being developed as an adult animated project actually gives me some hope. Animation allows DC to go much darker and weirder visually than live action sometimes can. And if they truly respect Tom King's tone, the tragedy, the emotional horror, the surrealism, the uncomfortable themes, then this could actually become one of the best DC projects in years.
It all depends on one thing. Will James Gunn let Darkseid feel genuinely horrifying, or will he smooth out the edges to make everything more accessible and fun? Because honestly, Darkseid shouldn't feel fun. He should feel inevitable, like death,
like fear itself. That's the version of Darkseid I want to see. Not just a big villain for Phase 1 checklist purposes. A real presence. A real threat. A character whose existence alone changes the atmosphere of the universe. So yeah, I'm still interested in Mister Miracle, but I'm also cautious, because this project honestly feels like a turning point for the DCU. If they nail Darkseid, maybe my excitement for James Gunn's universe comes back. But if Darkseid ends up feeling watered down or overly comedic, I think a lot of people who miss the darker and more ambitious side of DC are gonna feel even more disconnected from this new era. But what do you guys think? Do you still trust James Gunn's vision for DC? Or are you also starting to miss the darker and more mythological style Snyder was building toward? And most importantly, what kind of Darkseid do you actually want to see? Comment your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more DC discussions, movie reviews, and nerd debates like this.